Let's take a look back at the end of 2022 for the Toledo Walleye as they do go into the new year, a little bit of a hot streak. Out of their last 11 games, they have scored at least 1 point in 9 of those 11 games. And with the Central Division tightly bunched up, they can be anywhere from 5th to 3rd depending upon who has played in the last couple of days.
Yeah, it really, a win here, a win there, and all of a sudden you jump back up. I mean, a couple days ago they were in 3rd. Now they're in 5th. You could go either way. It just depends on what happens there. Just a win here, a win there, the whole thing flips. And you know what? Getting points is important. I think people look at it and go, oh man, but you're losing those games in overtime. Well, you know what? You're getting points though. And every time you can just keep stacking on points, even if it's one at a time, those things matter later on in the year, because you know what will end up happening is we'll hit February, March, all of a sudden you're in jostling for a playoff spot. But you've got that advantage because of the fact you've played so many more games in overtime, and some games that should have been losses for you turned into, games where you get a point. They're important at the end of the year. They always add up, and you always are like, man, that one game where we could have tied the game or gave up a late goal in the 3rd period to lose, those are the games you always think about if you don't.
Speaking of points, we've been talking about points for teams, but points for individuals as well. Brendan Hawkins, he's been on fire this past month. And as we look back on the year end, one of the things we saw from the Toledo Blade was they showed some of the local plays that made top 10 for a national sportscast. And Hawkins was in there a couple of times as that hot play from the end of 2022 has reignited him at the end of December 2022.
Yeah, well, we'll see if it does, because he's coming off a month where Toledo played 15 games in a month of December, but he had 14 points, a point per game. Now, he had a couple games, he had 3 assist game in there, that allow you to have a couple games where maybe you don't pick up points. But he's a guy that offensively Toledo needs to have rolling. And especially when you look at the power play side of things, if he's on his game and he's hot, then that power play starts to play better. Offensively, Toledo goes better. It just feels like, I know you don't want to say, hey, your offense funnels through one guy. That it's not the case. That Toledo has other guys that can score. There's no question about it. We've seen it over this last month for sure, and in this last stretch. But when he's rolling, it just seems like everybody starts going, and he right now is. And then again, Toledo had a better month because of it.
Sebastian Kosa, great goals against average, strong goals against average for Lethenman as well. But Kosa just 4-4. The defense perhaps letting the goalies down a little bit. Is that a concern psychologically that the goalies are going to start to lose a little bit of their confidence because they're maybe not getting as much help as they need from the blue line?
Well, it's very interesting on a guy like Sebastian Kosa. He was 4-4 in the month of December, but his goals against average was under 3. Now his save percentage was under 900. You're like, oh, Matt, that's not that great. But he had 2 games in there where he played against Kalamazoo and gave up 5 goals in 2 periods. And then he turned around the other night, last week, on Friday against Fort Wayne, and he gave up 5 goals in 2 plus a few minutes into the 3rd period. Those ones, you take those starts out, unbelievable numbers for him, and a 4-2 record for the month. So, he's a young kid. You got to remember that. He's only 20 years old. This is his first pro season. Going to have some up and downs, going to have some great starts like he did. He had a really good start last Wednesday in Fort Wayne. Took the loss 2-1. Not his fault. He was great in that game. He had 37 saves. He was phenomenal in that contest. But then he turned around 2 nights later and just kind of struggled a little bit. So it's that finding that consistency in his game. As he starts to grow and get more consistent, it's going to be nice between the pipes for Toledo. And John Lethenman, of course, is a solid goalie. You're going to get the same out of him a lot of nights anyway.
After 4-5 the last couple of weeks, 3 games this weekend for the Walleye, 2 at home. They're home Friday and Sunday, on the road Saturday. So another chance for the folks to come out this weekend and see the Walleye.
And you know what? Toledo had a great thing last week, all right? 2 home games, both over 8,000, almost 8,100 on Wednesday or Tuesday. And then they had, almost 8,300 on Friday. How about the fact that 8,072 that we played in front of on Tuesday with the smallest crowd of the entire week? Fort Wayne had 9,000. Cincinnati had 9,500 on Saturday. So Toledo got to play in front of a lot of great fans. We know Toledo has the best fans. They're still leading the league in attendance. It's going to go up this weekend with the Friday and the Sunday game. And Hens and Hounds. I was thinking baseball there. Yep. But it's Paws and Pucks coming up on Sunday. So it's going to be a fun weekend downtown Toledo.
Yeah, so 5 o'clock on a Sunday. If you can't take your dog to the game, stay at home with the Pooch and watch it right here on BCSN with Matt Melzak. Matt, thanks for coming in.
Always a pleasure, Mark.